is up? Welcome back to my channel and welcome to Full Body Strength. Today we are taking it back to basics because as wild and wacky as some of the exercises I share on here may look, they're all based on the same key compound movements. So today, instead of focusing on progressing the difficulty of the exercise by either doing some new variation or lifting more weights, we're taking the focus back to stability, coordination, and control. It is so important, whether you're just starting out or even if you're more advanced, that you're building off of a strong base, a good foundation. If you're trying to work off of a shaky foundation, it's going to collapse at some point. Either you get injured, you hit a plateau, something of that nature. So if you are just starting out, this is a great place to start to make sure that you're getting the right form, the right focus, the right control. Or if you're more advanced, this is a great style workout to cycle back to make sure that your body's feeling good, your body awareness is in check, all that jazz. All you'll need for today's workout is a heavier set of weights. I will be using a set of 15-pound dumbbells, and an optional lighter set of weights. I've got my 5-pound weights on hand, as well as a box bench or a stable piece of furniture that's about 1 to 2 feet off the ground. If you're ready to get started, make sure to shoot me a thumbs up and let's get into it. Getting into today's workout, there's a couple things I need you to know before we get started. So the first is that today's workout is all about quality over quantity. I do not want you rushing your reps. I want your focus to be on stability, coordination, and control. So with that said, every exercise that I demonstrate, I'm going to give you a very specific rep tempo or speed with which I want you to perform that exercise. So listen for that when I'm explaining it. Second thing is that while this is not a circuit-based workout, it is going to be quick. Okay, there's not a lot of rest between exercises, so I want you to make sure you're fully resting, you're not jumping around, you're not doing jump rope, you're not pressing fast forward, you're taking that time to listen for the instructions for the next exercise, going through the motions if you want, so you can bring your best confidence, your best coordination to that next set. Okay, that's all for now. Our first exercise, I'm gonna go ahead and grab one of my heavier weights. It's gonna be the counterbalance split squat. So, starting with the left leg in front, taking a big step back with the right leg, keeping most of the weight in that front leg. I'm holding the weight in my opposite arm, in the right arm. Left arm is up and out to the side for balance. We are going to go slow on the lower, holding for a brief pause at the bottom, then steady on the up. Notice how my gaze is staying ahead, my chest is staying up, and we're controlling this speed throughout. Okay, so I want you to try to do your best to match my speed. During this exercise, we're gonna be going in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Starting on the left. Once we complete this side, we will go right over to the right side. Okay, so do your best to keep up with me. Slow on the lower, holding for that brief pause, then steady on the up. And repeat. Working to maintain that same strong form throughout this entire interval for me. Right on over to the right side, so right leg in front, weight in the left hand, right arm out to the side. Same thing, slow on the lower, pause at the bottom, steady on the up. Alright, like that, we've got 60 seconds on the clock. Our next exercise, I am going to move my little bench in for us, whatever you're using, moving your chair, your bench, your sofa, I don't know, whatever you got going on. We're going to sit our bum down, feet about hip width apart, nice and firmly planted on the ground. Tall upright posture again, gaze straight ahead, chest straight ahead, shoulders back, grabbing our weights, heavier or lighter, whatever your preference. From here, big inhale. As we exhale, I want you to go steady on the up. Hold for a brief pause up here, and then control the lower. All right, so steady on the up. Hold for a brief pause, control the lower. Make sure that when you're up at the top, your shoulders are fully elevated and up by your ears. We're not getting lazy, we're completing that range. Because we are going in 3, 2, and 1. Let's do this. Okay, like that. We've got 60 seconds on the clock, so we're actually gonna be able to leave our bench right where it's at for right now. Standing up for our next exercise, we're gonna be doing a sit back hinge. This is basically a Romanian deadlift, but it's kind of a helpful way of teaching that I find to help you make sure that you're fully sitting back at the hips, especially if you're someone who's afraid when you sit back at the hips that you're just gonna fall back. Okay, so the way we're gonna do this is starting up tall, weights by our sides, tall chest, eyes straight ahead. We are going to snug up our calves against our support, and your goal is to keep your shins vertical throughout. The way we're going to do that is by sitting back at the hips, back, 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 as far as they can go. Once they're back all the way, your weight should end up somewhere around just about knee or below knee height. Then squeeze your hips back forward to return to standing. Using that support to help you really emphasize sitting back at the hips, because we are going right heck in now. All right, starting tall with me, slow on the lower as we reach back with our hips, using our bench for support to help us feel confident doing so, holding for a brief pause here, then smooth and steady on the up. Again, slow on the lower, really reaching behind you with those hips, holding for a brief pause, then steady on the up. Repeating just like that with me. On the clock again. So our next exercise is actually going to build upon and kind of use some of that sit back we were talking about. Again, using the bench to provide us a little bit of support, a little bit of feedback on where our body's at. So next up, we're going to have the bent over row. Something that's really important is that we do engage the glutes here so that we're not putting a strain on our low back when we're bent over. So the way we're going to do that is set it up just like you would that previous exercise. Give me a little baby sit back at the hips till you just feel those glutes engage. From here, tummy tight. We feel the glutes because we're sitting back at the hips. We are going to row the weights. Steady on the up. Hold for a brief pause. Control the lower. Steady on the up. Hold for a brief pause. Control the lower. Making sure that we're using that bench to help remind us to sit back at the hips and engage those glutes, because we're up. Right, heck and now, let's do this. Quick up, hold for a brief pause, control the lower with me. Quick up, hold for a brief pause, slow on the lower. Making sure to sit back into that support a little bit. If it helps you, feel your glutes engage as they're gonna help stabilize your spine and keep this movement pain-free. that. We have 60 seconds on the clock. For our next exercise, I am just gonna move my bench back a little bit because we're gonna need a little bit more room in front of us. That looks about right, so you maybe about a foot back. Okay, from here, we're gonna be doing a hip thrust with march. So we're only gonna need one of our heavier weights, if that, for this exercise. I'll show you what we're gonna do. Put that across your hips, kind of between your hips, across your thigh, depending on the size of your weight. We're going to put our shoulder blades across the edge of our support. So find that little ridge for me, put them across the support. Holding our weight, we're going to thrust our hips up. When we come to the top, what I want you to do is march and march, okay? Whether you hold the weight or use no weight, whatever works for you. Coming up, march and march before controlling the lower down. I'm actually gonna do just body weight on this one today. It's a great stability exercise even with no weight. We are off, let's go. Steady on the up, hold for a brief pause. March, march. Controlling the lower, going nice and slow. Steady on the up. March, march. Working to minimize any shifting or rotating of the hips, keeping this really stable for me. March and march. Stabilize before controlling that lower. On the clock before our final exercise this first round. So we're going to want to make a little bit of room because we're going to be getting into a hands elevated push-up. So move your weights to the side if you need to. Make sure that you have room for your legs to go out behind. We're going to put our hands on the edge of our bench. If you got to move it forward a little bit again, that's okay. Making sure you have room for your legs out behind. Bum down, not up in the air, tummy tight. All right, from here, hands on the bench to make the push-up a bit easier. Slow on the lower. Hold for a brief pause at the bottom. Then push up steady, okay? If you're not quite there yet, feel free to do a knee push up from the ground at the same speed. Whatever works for you. My bench height's okay, so I'm gonna stick with this for today. But again, if your bench is too high or low for this to be challenging, do it from the floor, from your knees, or from a full push up. Because we're getting going in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Let's do this. Slow on the lower. Hold for that brief pause. Then steady on the up. And repeat just like that with me. Workout. So now's a great time to clean up your space, grab a towel, a tissue, a drink. Do that, and I'll be back to check in with you when it's time for round 2. Like that, we're back for round 2 of this workout. So we still have about a minute of rest on the clock, so if you're still resting, don't worry about it. But as a reminder, our first exercise will be that counterbalance split squat. So going ahead, grabbing your heavier or lighter weight, whatever you want to use today. We're going to start with our weight on the left foot. Then we're going to take a big step back, keeping most of the weight forward on that left foot. Eyes straight ahead, chest high, left arm is out for balance. Weight is in the opposite or right hand. We're going to bend at the knee, go slow on the lower, holding for a brief pause at the bottom before coming steady on the up. All right, we should be aiming to lower until our knee is just hovering above or skimming the ground, then raising back up. Making sure that during that pause at the bottom, you're doing your best to maintain that nice, tall, and strong posture, not letting anything get lazy or droop. Okay, because we're gonna be getting going in just about 10 seconds. So as a reminder, we'll do this on the left leg, we'll go right into the right leg, then we'll have a rest. I will count you in when we get to 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Let's do this. Switching directly over to the right side, so right leg in front, weight going to the left hand, right arm out to the side for balance. From there, we've got 60 seconds on the clock, so I'm going to go ahead and move my bench towards center mat for our next few exercises. Right around center mat should work, because next up we're going to have that seated overhead press. So again, grabbing either your lighter or heavier weights, whatever feels good for you. As a reminder, today's workout's more about stability, coordination, and control, so don't worry if you're not pushing the heaviest weights. We will be going. Nice tall posture, eyes and chest straight ahead. Feet firmly planted into the ground for support. Quick on the up. Holding for a brief pause, shoulders fully extended up by our ears. Control the lower. Quick up. Holding for a brief pause. Control the lower, just like that. Okay, so don't worry if you're not pushing the heaviest weights. You know what? I will go ahead and drop to my heavier weights too, or lighter weights. So if you're thinking of doing it, try it. If last time was a little bit too heavy, because we're off. Okay, like that, we've got 60 seconds on the clock. I can see I am happy that I dropped to my lighter weights because it allowed me to focus that much more on my form, all right? So don't be shy. If you need to drop at any point, don't worry about it. Plenty more opportunities to lift heavy weights in the future. So here, we're gonna be going into that sit back hinge again, so make sure we're snugging our calves up against the front of our support, making sure that it's there to provide us that feedback that we're not gonna fall back as we sit our hips back. From here, we'll be starting from standing, nice tall posture, and sitting back at the hips, reaching back with that bum, and working to keep the shins vertical throughout. Okay, that's what the support is there for. Hold for a brief pause at the bottom, quick on the up. All right, so slow on the lower, getting those hips back as far as they'll go, brief pause, quick on the up, just like that with me. Okay, use your support, as needed, because we'll be getting going, right? heckin' now. All right, from there, we've got 60 seconds on the clock. Our next exercise is going to be the bent over row with sit back emphasis again. So as a reminder, reach that sit back hinge where I encourage you to use the support to help you feel comfortable sitting those hips back. Here, again, I want you to sit your way into your hips, but this time, it's so that we can engage the glutes to support our spine as we do a bent over row. It's really important, especially as you begin progressing the weight on the row, that we are engaging those glutes and core to stabilize your spine, keep it stable, happy, supported, so that we're not getting any back pain here. All right, so once you find that position, sitting your way into your hips, glutes engaged, we're gonna go quick on the up, hold for a brief pause, slow and control on the lower. Quick on the up, hold for a brief pause, slow and controlled on the lower. I will count you in. When we get to 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1, let's do this. All right, like that, we've got 60 seconds on the clock. I'm gonna go ahead and move my bench back a little bit now, maybe about a foot and a half back on the mat so there's some room in front of us. Because our next exercise, we're going back into the hip thrust to march. So I'm gonna go body weight again on this just so I can really focus on my stability. Finding the edge of your shoulder blades by putting your arms up, squeezing the elbows down, find that bridge. Line it up with the edge of your bench or whatever you're using today. Legs about hip width apart. We're going to push down into our heels as we thrust our hips up. Here, I want you to hold for a brief stabilization before lifting one leg, putting it down. Lifting the other leg, putting it down, then controlling the lower back down. Okay, so that's quick on the up. Stabilize, march, march. Control the lower. We're going to stay as stable and in control as possible throughout the range because we are off. 60 seconds to clean up and make some space before we go back into that hands elevated push-up. So I'm just gonna take all my weights, move them off to the side so we have some room for our legs behind us once we get our hands up on the bench. So from here, if you need to move your bench a little bit more forward, make room for yourself. We're going to be putting our hands along the edge here, legs out behind, hips are not up here, back is not arched, our hips are down. I want you to make that bum look tiny by squeezing it down. That's gonna help us brace those core muscles, keep the spine stable and strong. From here, controlling the lower, holding for a brief pause, coming up quick, okay? Just like that on this exercise. If your bench is too high or low, it's not feeling good, do this from the ground. Do a kneeling push-up, do a full push-up, whatever you want, as long as you're keeping it that slow on the lower, pause at the bottom, quick on the up with me, you will be good to go because we are off. Rock it back, lock it up, stand it up, sit it down, do whatever you want, okay? Because you made it through another workout with me. I'm so proud of you for making it through this workout. I know it can be a little bit confusing, slowing down on the reps sometimes, not maybe aiming to lift like the most weight as fast as possible all the time, but I find including these types of workouts every so often, if you are more advanced or as a starting place, if you're just getting into weights, can be really, really helpful for building that foundation of coordination, of body awareness, of understanding what different movements feel like, so that you have that information to go back on as you progress, as you start doing more advanced variations, lifting more weights, all that type of stuff. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed today's workout. If you did, definitely shoot me a thumbs up. Let me know in the comments down below if you'd like to see more like this, maybe what your favorite form cue or exercise was. If you felt something a little bit different for the first time, let me know down below. I always love working out with you and I can't wait for our next workout together.